They need some big brains over there. I think I could bring that.
Yo, big brains is like your slogan
Nah,
for the weekend.
yeah, cause no, Ferrari needs some Fred. Come on, Fred, step up. All right, welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Pole to Podium podcast, where we will dive into another Grand Prix weekend. What's going on, Lily?
Hi, I'm great. Actually, that's not
That's not true.
true. I'm okay. I've had some events happen recently that are on my mind, but otherwise, things are fine. I'm healthy. I'm here. We have an eventful, maybe Grand Prix to talk about.
Maybe we have the Monaco procession, where we had Lando Norris being crowned what, Mr. Monaco, the Prince of Monaco.
Nah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
before they come for your head.
Let's start it off actually with game of the week.
Okay, so the game of the week is called 21 Questions, but we're of course going to do it Formula One related. So I will think of a noun, person, place, or thing related to the sport, and Junior will have up to 21 questions to figure out who or what or where I am thinking. Now, the only questions that you can ask me, Junior, are questions that have an answer of yes or no. So I cannot give you a answer like specific to a country, or I can't give you an answer specific to a team. It has to be a yes or no question. With that out of the way, do you feel like you understand the rules?
For sure. Let's go.
Okay. Would you like to go first or should I?
Ladies first.
All right, I'm ready. So you got to hit me with a question, yes or no.
Is it a person?
Yes.
Is your person a current driver on the grid?
No.
Is your person a former race winner?
No. Well, Keep me more specific. A race winner in what capacity?
A race winner, an F1 race winner.
No.
Is your person a team principal?
No.
Is your person European?
No.
Okay, so
That
here's
narrows it down to like 10 people.
wait, hold on. Let me think. So not European, not a driver, not a team principal. Is your person a team owner?
Mm, is he a team owner?
I should be right
No.
in. It's not a
No.
team owner.
Not a team owner.
Is your person black?
No.
Is it a man?
Yes.
Well, not a team principal, not an owner. You're not talking about Zach, because Zach is definitely European.
Zach who?
Zach Brown.
Zach Brown is European.
I don't know. Oh, he's American?
Have you heard Zach Brown speak? What do you mean Zach Brown is European?
Oh yeah, Zach is American, right?
Correct.
So you speak. So he's your person, Zach.
Yes. You had me for a second because I was like, damn, does Zach Brown own McLaren? No, he doesn't. But you know what? Part of the reason why I chose Zach is because I think Zach moves as if he is CEO and team principal. So he confuses people a lot because he's present for everything. So when you asked the question, is he a team principal? There was a little bit of hesitation because for a second myself I had to remind myself that Zach is actually not team principal. But yeah, my person is Zach Brown.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right. Well, that was horrible. Um,
All right, your turn.
okay, so go ahead and ask your first question.
Is this a place?
No.
Is this a person?
Yes.
Are they European?
Yes.
Are they a driver?
Yes.
Okay. Are they a world champion?
Soon, but no.
Soon is not an answer.
All right. No.
Are they from Monaco?
No.
Is this person a rookie?
Yes.
Is this person French?
Yes.
Is he little in height?
Wow, that's crazy. I don't know what
Wow, that's crazy. Is not an answer.
I don't know what defines little, but I guess so. Yes.
Is this Isaac?
Of course, the rookie of the year.
Now, that was record timing, by the way. I got that in 10 questions.
Wait, how many questions did I ask?
I don't know, but we could always run it back and count.
Nah, I didn't think I asked that.
Yours took a few minutes. Mine was like a rapid fire.
It was. It was. I gave you that. But going back to Monaco Lily, how was that race for you?
You know what? The if I had to sum it up in one, maybe two words, I would say uneventful and also comical. The race was, I have to be honest and admit, I felt like it was boring at times because it was definitely a procession of cars. And there was also a attempt from drivers to slow down the pace of other drivers as a part of strategy, which then made it, really uneventful for like viewers to watch. But I also feel like it was comical because watching like Mercedes, specifically George, try to uh, get around what Williams was doing was funny to me. Um, and I think that might have been like one or two other moments where I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'm getting a little giggle out of this. But all in all, I was not impressed. I wasn't in love with the race. If I had to rate it, it would be a low three. What would you rate it, Junior?
I would give it a 3 as well.
Tell me why.
Tell you what. Okay, so we had, of course, this new mandatory two-stop rule introduced to basically force every team to pit twice in an effort to, spice up Monaco. Usually, whoever is on pole in Monaco will win. I think, what, 14? Well, no, 15 of the last 21 races have been decided by pole. But what it did, it just created a battle where persons who qualified behind their teammate were just allowed to hold up cars, allow their teammate to get further in front so they can have that extra pit stop and just back and just have a DRS train for the entire race. F1 is not only about, it's about strategy as well. And I guess at the end of the day, I have to give it up to the strategists who saw this loophole and took advantage of it. Because it's not the first time it happened. It happened in previous races as well. I guess the issue came in where you had teammates behind each other, so they were just allowed to hold up people behind them.
Okay, actually, I want to add something because, like, the strategists who you'd be shouting out would be Red Bull strategists or Racing Bull, correct?
For sure. Well, they started it, and it was
And
just a
then
trickle
others
down effect.
continued.
Yeah.
But you see, my thing is, I feel, and I'm basing this off of the post race interviews with Alex and Carlos, who drive for Williams. They adopted the same strategy because they felt they had to. And then Mercedes adopted the same strategy because others were doing it. So I feel like it was a situation where like you let one person slip, now everybody's sliding through, and kind of causing the issue and making it even worse. But my thing is, when it first happened with Isaac and Liam, I remember I texted you and I was like, okay, I I thought that was pretty clever on their part, and I actually felt like, okay, for once, like it feels like Red Bull, not Red Bull. Oh my gosh, I keep confusing them. Racing Bull was using Liam as much as they were using Isaac. But then it became like everybody else started to do it. And then I was like truly able to see how problematic of a strategy it was. It was boring for the viewers, but it was even like boring for the drivers because then you have like George who is going behind Alex, who's crawling through the race, and you can hear him complaining over the radio that Alex is going slow on purpose, and there's nothing that he can really do about it
Yeah.
except for breaking the rules, which he did.
But it goes to show that the race is on Saturday. You qualify where
Race is on
you
Sunday.
the race is on Sunday, but the race is on Saturday because
Oh, okay.
qualifying determines basically your position, right? And in qualifying, well, we had Lando doing an amazing job. I would say putting in well the fastest lap we have seen around Monaco, so a new lap record, snatching pole from Charles in a very exciting qualifying. So I would say that qualifying is, I guess, what everyone tunes into for Monaco, and that's a justification for some folks who love Monaco, saying that you have to qualify in a very high position in order to have a chance of scoring points. And Kimi, he crashed, did not make it into Q3. George had a power issue failure, which is very unfortunate, and that's just how it goes sometimes. It's I don't know what else they can do to solve that issue. Some people say race Monaco backwards. Just spice it up. But it's going to be very interesting next year because of the smaller cars, no DRS next year, a new electrical system. So I think that's what we have to live with for the time, and hopefully next year we have some better racing and they can tweak this two pit stop strategy or implement some other rules to make it more entertaining for the fans at home. Coming back to George though, he tried some big brains on Alex by cutting the chicane.
But his response afterwards is what killed me. He was like, I'll take the penalty.
And the FIA probably saw that and was like, you know what? I'm gonna make an example out of you. Although I
Right.
think they said it in the driver's briefing that if you purposefully cut the chicane, they will in they will implement the maximum penalty, which a drive through is definitely the worst because you cannot change your tires, and with a two pit stop race, that is like so basically you're making three pit stops. Did you see that Alex took him out for dinner and paid for the bill?
Yeah, I saw that. Well, first thing is, George had been complaining about Alex driving slow, slow, slow. And I think he, definitely like reached his point where he was like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore with Alex. So when he cut through, I busted out laughing because I'm like, I remember saying this before. The more that I get to see George's personality shine through, George is my kind of guy. Like that's something that I would do. That is something that I would support where it's like, you know what, you're getting in my way. I'm over this. I'm gonna take matters into my own hands. But you know what? At the end of the day, he stood by his penalty. He took it, and I don't think he had any regrets about it. I'm happy though that he and Alex obviously don't let this situation like ruin their friendship. But man, that was hilarious.
As I said, is that's not how they want to go racing. It's literally you just have to do what you have to do to score points, any loophole you can find. So I'm not mad at Alex or George or mad any other driver. But you know, going back to George and Mercedes, I would have to say they are the biggest disappointment of the entire weekend. I didn't quite understand their strategy. You have two drivers basically one behind each other. You try to split the strategy. They were waiting on a red flag, maybe I don't know, but even though you would still have, even if a red flag came, that's just one pit stop. You still have to make another one. So I really didn't understand their strategy. I think they were the biggest losers for the entire weekend. And
Well, it was also interesting that laps 40 to 50 passed and they still never made their first pit stop.
yep, they were
I mean,
waiting
like,
for
what
that.
were. Okay, I understand waiting, but half of the race has passed by. And
Exactly,
you
because it
have
was
two
too.
pit stops. So, really, you have four to make. So that to me, I understand like why you were confused because I was equally confused. You can't like, are you gonna wait until Max, where Max took his very last pit stop in the very last lap? I mean, it's just unrealistic. But I also felt like I wouldn't. In my analysis, I wasn't calling them the biggest disappointment, but I feel like they were the biggest losers of the weekend, where it's like they didn't qualify well, happened for them, and then like the race was a disaster.
The reason I said biggest disappointments, biggest losers, I mean they didn't score any points this weekend.
Mm-mm.
Ferrari is now a few points away from them in the constructors.
I think it's five.
It's 5 points away from them in the constructors. The usually Mercedes is on point with their strategy, and this was this was some Ferrari type behavior, honestly, and definitely.
Wow, how Ferrari getting a
Well,
shot?
we could move on to Ferrari as well, but I think Lewis is definitely going to get a new engineer in the coming weeks
Oh wow,
because
yeah.
the communication. I'm sorry, but the language barrier is
Hmm.
really getting clearly. Lewis and his engineer, they're not on the same page. Um, he's asking questions, simple questions. Hey, is the guys are they a minute ahead of me? And he's given information on Charles's tire, where and it's just mess. At the end, Lewis asks if he was upset with him. There's no response from Ricardo, and it it's I think they cannot continue like this. You either have to get someone who is clear, who can communicate, who gives the information that he requires. And Lewis's race was very interesting as well. I really didn't understand it because he basically undercut Max, but when he came out of his second stop, he dropped to like 30 seconds, or he
Yeah, I
finished
think
the
it was
race
like
40 seconds.
44 seconds
Yeah,
behind.
behind Max. And I was paying attention to the driver's tracker as well. And when Lewis had encountered a lot of traffic, but so did Max. So when Max was going through the traffic, Lewis was catching him. And then when Lewis finally arrived at the traffic, the gap would have been neutralized. But I really didn't understand how Max was able to. Lewis finished 44 seconds behind the pace. I really, after the pit stop, I'm speaking, behind 20 seconds behind Max. That was kind of crazy to me. And his engineer, again, as he said, he was just in a race on his own. He wasn't fighting no one really. And I think he needs it's time. That
Hmm.
experiment, the experiment did not work with um this race his race engineer, and I think come on Fred, you need they need he promised new culture. Ferrari is too much of an iconic team, too much experience for uh a simple information between a driver and his engineer to be an issue.
Well, I definitely felt like there were two races happening. I feel like drivers 1 through 4, Max, Oscar, Lando, Charles, were in their own race. Maybe Lewis because he had outlapped some other people, and it was just confusing to see how he got like tied up in traffic, but then like the gap just kept widening and widening and widening, and it wasn't necessarily that this was like hurting his chances of getting fifth, but what if it was? It's not necessarily that like this situation negatively affected him in points, because like I said, I felt like there were two different races happening. There was a second race with the drivers behind who were being lapped and holding each other up, but I just think that it was very questionable, and man, I don't want to see that happen again.
Hopefully next week we have the Spanish Grand Prix. We're going to Barcelona, and a lot of teams will be bringing upgrades. Hopefully, Ferrari brings some upgrades that actually helps.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if they were to replace Lewis's engineer, his race engineer,
hmm
how quickly do you think that could happen? Like, do you think that could happen as
Next
quickly as
race.
like next race?
Yeah, next race. Charles changed
Mm,
his race engineer. Um, he used to be Xavier, but now his race engineer is
Brian Bosey,
that's right, Brian. Right. Charles changed his race engineer. When was it? Last
2020, middle of 2024 season.
exactly. He changed it in the middle of a season.
Mm-hmm.
So it literally could be a next race next race move. I understand that Ricardo I mean, he's been at Ferrari a long time, seniority, but we can this cannot continue going on. Um, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just was, to not answer at all is crazy. Especially when Lewis asks you such a clear question and all you hear is like radio silence. That
I guess he was
was,
upset. I guess he was upset after all.
yeah, but you have to be a professional in this moment, and also not compromise your relationship with Lewis, and to do it publicly. I mean, it's since Lewis's very first race, we know that his radio messages, especially between his race engineer, are prioritized for displaying it publicly. Like we hear the back and forth between them too. So I don't know. For me too, it's like you also can't even like show face for the broadcast. You can't even just answer and say you could even lie. But it's
Yeah.
just the fact that like we're privy to that dialogue. It just adds kind of a layer of embarrassment.
Yeah. Well, the biggest highlights in Monaco was the amount of celebrities present.
Yeah, I mean it's a really like glitzy glam track.
Imagine going to Monaco. I was looking at
Well,
videos
I
about
was too. And I actually was looking at obviously like the more affordable route, like staying in Nice and
yeah,
then
take like a eight
traveling in.
take a train over
Right.
$8 train. The the tickets are crazy, but you go up on a hill somewhere.
Right. Because you don't have to like sit in the grandstands to still see the race.
No,
So I certainly was looking at Monaco as well. The
that would
weather
be a
looked
crazy.
beautiful. The
Yep.
vibe is amazing. One thing too that I thought is interesting is after the race, they open up the track, and people can go onto the track the night before race time. Um, they can.
Even on the when they're setting up the track, like
Mhm,
you're free to go the pit lane, look at
mhm.
all the stations being set up. I guess it's a very immersive fan experience, but
Right.
it's just super expensive.
Well, interestingly, one of the races that I would like to go to, this is kind of a goal for next year, is I want to go to the Spanish Grand Prix. That's one that it's not quite expensive to like fly from JFK to, I think it's into Barcelona. So yeah, that race is on my bucket list for sure.
My dream race is definitely the Belgium Grand Prix.
What about Silverstone?
Um,
I kind of
yeah.
thought you'd say Silverstone because it's home race for Lewis.
I might as well say Monaco, right? Home race for Charles. Let's check our predict. Did you
Oh
check your
my god, I
predict?
did not
Yeah,
check
F1
my
predict.
prediction. Okay, hold on. I have
I
to
I
get up
did.
and get my phone.
So guys, we started a league. Um, anyone plays F1 Fantasy and F1 Predict, you can join the league. It's Pole to Podium podcast, and we just started it. So you can. It's not too late.
Okay. My podium prediction, I had Oscar taking first, Max taking second, and Charles taking third. So I got 19 points because I predicted Oscar and Charles. I just had it in the wrong order.
So I had Charles in first, Max in second, and Lando in third. So I got 20 points.
Nice. And then pole position, who'd you put?
I had Oscar winning, Oscar taking pole. So
I had Charles. Both of us are
um,
wrong.
and for question three, it was who would qualify highest for the
Oh, that
Grand
was the
Prix
easy one.
between Isaac and Liam. I went with Isaac.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and Isaac did. Question four: how far will Franco Colapinto progress in qualifying? And this is where I made my error. I was supposed to put Q1. However, I ended up putting Q3. Yeah.
Yikes.
I had a dyslexic moment there. For some reason, Q3 in my head was the first knockout, the
Mm.
first round.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up with 0 points there.
Yeah, I chose Q1, so I got my 25.
Oh, that's a lot. That's whew.
Yeah, 25 was amazing. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I even hesitated between Q1 and no time set
Yes, me
for
too.
Franco. Those are like my considerations.
Question five: who would set the fastest pit stop of the race? I had Mercedes.
Me too.
Ferrari set the fastest pit stop with a 2 second
That's
uh,
right.
stop. So 0 points for, for both of us.
But that's what we get for counting on Mercedes in the Monaco Grand Prix.
And they had a perfect chance because they had so many pit stops to make, right?
So many.
All
Four.
right. Question six: who will we see a new GP winner? And because I had
Oscar?
no, my question one, I had Charles winning,
Okay.
so I went with no.
Okay. I went with yes, and I didn't even. Has Oscar won Monaco? No,
No, no,
because
no.
Charles won it last year. Okay, so I put yes, um, but it's because I thought Oscar was gonna win, not Lando.
So I got no points there.
Same.
Q7, question
Oh,
seven.
excuse me, I got 10 points there.
Nice. Who will finish the race ahead? I between Kimmy, Isaac, Liam, Franco, Ollie, and Gabriel. I selected Isaac. Who did you
Same.
select? Okay, so I got 15 points there. And question eight: will we see 20 cars complete the first lap of the race? So all 20 cars did complete the first lap. However, I selected no, so I got 0 points. How about you?
Same. I also got
Oh,
0 points. I was certainly expecting a chaotic start because that's typically how Formula One
yeah,
starts off in Monaco. But even like in other tracks, surprisingly, the only person who crashed was uh, Gabriel, and he reversed himself out, so he ended up completing the lap.
true. And I guess that F2 pileup really maybe sent a shockwave to those drivers. Question nine: how many times will the red flag be used during Sunday's race? Red flags were needed in the 2024 Grand Prix, 2022, but not 2023. So I selected over 1.5 times. And in practice, we saw how many times and qualifying the red flag came out. So Unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately, because we don't want to see crashes and accidents. But I selected over 1.5 times. The red flag did not come out one time.
That's crazy. I also selected over 1.5 times, and it's because I was going on historical precedent.
And you know what? I saw this take that the FIA didn't want to. They were very hesitant to throw the red flag in order to stop people from getting a free pit stop, which is what happened last year when the red flag and everyone changed tires on the first lap, and the race was just a procession to the end.
That's interesting because remember when Pierre lost his brakes and his wing was on the track and they did not call a red flag for
And it
that?
was debris for the end, like a long section of the track, because he
Yes.
drove right back to the pit and he left debris from the time he crashed to the pit entry. So it was the FIA really, uh, they really didn't want to give anyone a free pit stop. So I think they held off on throwing a red flag purposefully.
Junior, you know what you just did? You
Big
just
brains, I
like
know.
collected, like you just pinged ideas in my head because I didn't think about that. But as soon as you said it, I'm like, well, now that makes sense why they didn't call the red flag for Pierre, even though literally his wing was on the track along with other debris. Wow, that's crazy.
So I got 0 points. Well, we both got 0 points for that. And finally, who would be ahead in the team standings after the race? It was between Aston Martin and Racing Bulls. I selected Racing Bulls. How about you?
I selected Aston Martin and I was wrong. I was at least hoping that Alonso would have points because interestingly, Lance Stroll was so chaotic this weekend. I was not betting on him at all. But this man was in the way left and right, causing chaos left and right. So, of course, like Lance Stroll was not in my consideration. I was betting on Alonso, but then obviously
To score
Alonso
his
did not
first points
finish.
of the season?
Yes. Why would I not bet on Alonso?
Because Daddy Stroll is there. But I use my. Did you use your two-time chip activate
No,
on?
I didn't. What
So
does
I
that
did.
mean?
So you get to use it on one question, and you
Mm-hmm.
can, if you get it right, you double your points.
Oh, okay.
So I actually used it on that question. So instead of 15 points, I got 30 points
Oh, wow. And you only get to use it twice?
once,
Oh, once. Got
but you get double whatever points you would get for that question. So I guess next week you can you can catch up. So with that, I scored a total of 74 points,
mm-hmm.
75, sorry, and that places Lily ahead from this week. So get in your predictions for Spanish Grand Prix. It usually would open on the Thursday.
Okay.
So I had Mercedes as the biggest disappointment of the weekend. Your biggest disappointment was
Monaco Grand Prix in general.
Monaco Grand Prix in general.
The
And what about your
whole
driver
race
of
was a
the day?
big disappointment. My driver of the day, I'm gonna give it to. Okay, how about this? You know how you do the Salesforce vote while the race is going?
Yeah.
Okay, so I locked in
Oh.
Isaac as
Oh,
my
you did?
driver of the day. I did,
Okay. I've
and I
never
did
done it.
that because at the time I saw what Racing Bulls was doing. I saw what Liam was doing. They were obviously kind of sacrificing Liam to make sure that Isaac got sixth and got points. But Isaac also held his own. He drove a very clean race. Um, he did what he could. So that's why I did select Isaac as my driver of the day for the Salesforce driver of the day vote. However, after seeing Charles come out in second, I feel like I got to give Charles my driver of the day post race because it's a home race. He did well. I know in his eyes, he thinks it's the biggest disappointment in the world, and he's got all the melodramatics or whatever. But I'd love to see when people are successful in their home country, and for that reason, I'm gonna give him my driver of the day post race.
So for me, I'll put it into, I guess, categories. So my driver of the day would definitely be Lando, right? Because he won the race, right? He came in on Saturday. He qualified in P1, took the lap record, held off Charles. The pressure that Max was putting on him at the end of the race, and he delivered, especially coming off a back foot where everyone was talking. Even we asked where was Lando last week, and well, Lando was like, well, here I am. So definitely for me, drive of the day will have to be Lando, just before executing a race that we predicted, in the sense of whoever is on pole will win the race. But I would like to say that my driver of the weekend would definitely be Isaac for qualifying great on Saturday, coming into the race, executing it, and select massive points for Racing Bulls. And also being a rookie, he drove in Monaco before in other series, but being that is his first F1 race, he did better than Yuki in the Red Bull seat, and he didn't put a foot wrong. I didn't see any lockups. And so, driver of the weekend is definitely Isaac. Driver of the day is Lando.
I wanted to say a quick thing on the point of Lando, because in the last episode we definitely were like, and it was me, a very vocal voice that was like, where's Lando? And as you said, Lando said, here I am, I'm here, I'm still in the game. And I definitely appreciated the show that he put on, but I think that it was very important for us as fans to also see that Lando is not giving up, and it is not Oscar's championship. It is still very much a fight between the two McLaren drivers, and whoever comes out dominant in the end will win. But I was very pleased, I mean, so happy to see that Lando did his big one and won Monaco in the end, because I for sure felt like he was. I just felt like we weren't seeing the best version of Lando in the previous races. So
Yeah, we didn't see the version we thought we would have seen, because at the end he is now, what, if you can fact check me on this, is what,
he's
3 points behind his teammate in the drivers championship. And this is now the closest inter team fight we have had since Lewis and Nico. So Piastri is on 161. I'm looking at here. Norris 158, and we have Max behind on 136. So very tight championship still. It's anyone's game. Next week, I think that Verstappen will be the winner. I'm predicting a Verstappen win next week, and the reason why. So this we can go into what we are looking ahead. So this was the second race of the triple header. Um, the FIA is implementing its crackdown on flexi wings, so teams will have to make major changes next week. I don't know how that would affect McLaren. We will really see the true pace. All I do know is that Max Verstappen is quick. I think if you put him in any car at this moment, he'll be quick. So that's why I'm predicting not a Red Bull, a Max Verstappen win.
clarification.
Clarification, right?
I also think that because Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari are so close to each other, I feel like pretty confident that Max is gonna uh, try his hardest to put some distance between Red Bull and both of the teams that are gaining on him. So I think we are definitely going to see Mad Max return, and it will be as after coming from Monaco, that was kind of a snooze fest. I think we're actually going to see um,
Some overtaken.
some overtaking, some aggression
Yeah.
on the track. Lando puffed his chest out and said, "I'm here," but now we need to see you keep that chest out and take on Max because Mad Max is coming.
It's going to be different from this week. We'll have a lot more, hopefully, excitement to talk about on track in the next episode. So before we wrap up, just some quick facts that I looked up about Monaco. Uh, Norris becomes the seventh British driver to win Monaco. Uh, Verstappen ended 31 consecutive podium at street circuits. That's over. And some weather trivia. Monaco has now gone 21 years without a wet Grand Prix. The last wet Grand Prix in Monaco was in 2004.
Oh, that's interesting. And on that note, we're going to see you next week for the Spanish Grand Prix. Make sure you check out our Pole to Podium podcast TikTok. We're also on Instagram and Facebook and even X. So if you want to check us out on any of those socials, it is Pole to Podium podcast on TikTok and Instagram. On X, we are Pole to Podium Pod, just POD, no cast at the end. Look forward to connecting with you there.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say thank you to our listeners on the last episode. Um, Continue sharing, guys, and see you next week.
Bye.